All right, ready to get a little sneaky today.
Oh, always up for some strategy.
I like that attitude. What are we diving into?
We're tackling Keeping Your Hands Clean, Law 26 from Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power. It's all about mastering, well, perception, really, in power dynamics.
Interesting. Perception, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think about it. It's not always what you do, but how you're seen doing it.
I see where you're going with this. Bit of smoke and mirrors.
Kinda, yeah. Almost like a magician using misdirection.
Oh, yeah, to pull off a trick. I get it.
It's all about that
Yeah.
sleight of hand. So the big question is, how do you get what you want, but still, come off looking totally squeaky clean?
Right, right. It's like you want the results, but without the dirt under the fingernail.
You got it. Spotless reputation, the whole 9 yards.
Well, you've got to consider the psychology behind it, the whole halo effect thing?
Fill me in. Halo effect.
Okay, so think about it this way. When someone comes off as ethical, right?
Yeah.
We just automatically assume all these other great things about them, too. Like what?
Competence, intelligence, even charisma. It's like a mental shortcut.
Our brain's just going, oh, good person, must be good at everything.
Exactly. And anyone looking to build influence, that can be a powerful tool. Super powerful.
So basically, a spotless reputation is like your secret weapon.
You got it.
It makes you more persuasive. People are more likely to side with you, all that.
Yeah. And that's exactly why this whole keeping your hands clean thing is so crucial. It all boils down to trust.
Trust, that's the foundation, for sure.
Because when people truly believe, that you're straight up honest, that you're fair,
Yeah,
they're just more likely to follow your lead. Be swayed by whatever you're saying.
makes sense.
But even the slightest hint of shadiness or anything that seems off,
Uh-oh.
poof, trust gone. People start questioning everything.
Yeah, their guard goes up.
Exactly.
Okay, I see how all this connects now.
Good.
But let's get down to brass tacks. How does this actually play out in the real world? Not just theory.
Ooh, real-world examples. Well, history's got a ton of them, and they're pretty fascinating. Let's rewind a bit, shall we? Go back a few centuries.
Okay, time travel it is.
Let's look at King Louis XIV, the Sun King of France, ruled for over 70 years.
Whoa, the Sun King? That's a serious reign.
Yeah. I mean, he clearly knew a thing or two about power, right? Holding on to it for that long.
Yeah, things were pretty intense back then.
Oh, absolutely.
Maintaining power. I bet it wasn't a walk in the park.
It definitely wasn't. But here's the thing. Louis XIV, he was master of this whole keeping your hands clean law.
Okay, spill the tea.
Absolute power. But somehow, he always appeared to be above the fray, not getting his hands dirty.
How did he pull that off?
Let's take taxes, for example.
Oh.
Always a sensitive subject.
Oh.
Even today.
Oh, yeah. You mess with people's money, you're asking for trouble.
Right. Raise taxes, people get angry, potentially rebel. It's a whole thing. So what did Louis XIV do?
I'm on the edge of my seat. What was his move?
He used his finance minister, Jean-Baptiste Colbert, as a buffer.
So Colbert was like the fall guy, taking the heat for the unpopular decision.
Exactly. Instead of Louis XIV directly imposing tax increases or punishments, Colbert did the dirty work.
That's pretty sneaky.
Strategic.
So Colbert's the one facing public anger, and Louis XIV gets to maintain this pristine image.
Yep. Colbert implemented the tough policies, bore the brunt of the discontent, and Louis XIV. He focused on cultivating this image of a benevolent king.
Concerned with the grand vision of France, above the messy details.
You got it. It was a calculated move, no doubt.
It definitely worked in his favor. He stayed clean, both figuratively and literally, while still getting stuff done.
Exactly. That's the power of this law in action. Now, ready to jump back to the present?
Back to the future. Where are we going now?
Let's talk about someone who built a business empire. Jeff Bezos.
Okay, Bezos and Amazon. Everyone knows that name. What's the connection to keeping your hands clean?
Well, Bezos is a perfect example of how this law works in today's world.
Mm-hmm.
He's carefully cultivated this image
Huh.
of a visionary leader, someone always looking ahead to the future of tech, always innovating.
Yeah, I see that.
But here's the catch. Amazon hasn't exactly been a stranger to controversy.
True, true. I've heard about some of the stuff surrounding, well, their labor practices.
Right. Working conditions, policies, the whole thing. And that's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Bezos has strategically delegated a lot of those decisions, the ones that could potentially hurt his reputation.
So he's hands-off when things get messy.
Not entirely hands-off, no. But he positions himself above the daily grind.
Focused on the big picture, the grand scheme of things.
Exactly. Innovation, strategy, That's his domain.
Hmm.
Other execs, they handle the less glamorous stuff, the more controversial stuff.
So he gets to stay the tech genius while others deal with the nitty-gritty, the stuff that might tarnish his image.
You got it. And it's definitely a factor in how he maintains his popularity despite the negative press.
This is making me rethink a lot of things. It's like a whole different lens on leadership and power. But question, what happens when you don't keep your hands clean?
Ooh, good question.
Is there a risk, like getting caught in the mess?
Absolutely. And we have a perfect cautionary tale for this. Richard Nixon and the Watergate scandal.
Ooh, now that's a downfall for the history books. Everyone's heard of Watergate, even if they don't know all the ins and outs.
Right, and it's a classic example of what can go wrong when you fail to keep your hands clean.
So spill the beans. What was it about Watergate specifically that brought Nixon down?
It wasn't just the break-in itself or even the illegal activities. It was his direct involvement in the cover-up.
Ah, the cover-up. Always worse than the crime.
Exactly. Nixon got entangled in the scandal, lost public trust, and ultimately lost his presidency.
It's a powerful reminder, even for the most powerful people. You lose that public trust, game over.
Yep, because that damage to their reputation, it can be impossible to repair.
Okay, I'm officially spooked. So how do you avoid becoming the next Nixon? Are there specific tactics, things people can do to stay clean?
That's where things get really interesting. We enter the world of, well, scapegoats.
Ooh, scapegoats. Passing the blame? Classic power move.
It is.
Yeah.
Choosing someone to take the fall, it's been a strategy forever. Let's rewind the clock again.
More time travel. Love it. Where are we headed?
To Russia. To the court of Ivan the Terrible. The Tsar of Russia.
Ivan the Terrible. Just the name is terrifying.
He earned that name, believe me. Known for his brutality.
Yeah, this guy was notorious.
But he was also a master manipulator. And to carry out his, let's say, ruthless policies, he created a special group, the Oprichniki, his personal enforcers.
So basically his hit squad, they did the dirty work. He stayed above the bloodshed.
Exactly, suppressing dissent, eliminating rivals, often with extreme violence. They were the face of Ivan's terror, the visible face.
While he cultivated this, image of authority?
Exactly. Even piety. It's chilling, really.
Did it work, though? Did people buy it?
For a while, yeah. But eventually, public outrage against the Oprichniki and all their brutality started to grow.
Makes sense. Too much violence, people start to notice.
So what did Ivan do? He distanced himself,
Smart move.
claimed he had no idea about their excesses.
Blamed him for everything.
Yep. Threw them under the bus, basically, further solidifying his position as the just ruler.
Wow, talk about a power play, but doesn't that seem risky? What if the scapegoat, fights back, spills the tea?
That's why choosing the right scapegoat is crucial. Ideally, it's someone dispensable, someone whose downfall won't affect your power, or sometimes they might even be willing to take the fall.
Maybe for future rewards, or to protect someone even more powerful.
Exactly.
This is fascinating stuff.
It is.
We've seen keeping your hands clean with kings, with CEOs, big players.
Right.
But how does this apply to the average person? Like, can we use these tactics in our everyday lives?
Absolutely. These principles, they're relevant in an NY situation where you've got power dynamics.
So not just for the rich and powerful.
Nope. Work, relationships, even among friends. It's everywhere.
So we can all learn from this.
You got it. We all navigate these power dynamics every single day. And understanding this law, it can help us do it better, achieve our goals, and of course protect that all-important reputation.
Okay, now I'm really seeing the light. But can you give me a concrete example, something most people can relate to?
Sure. Imagine you're working on a project, right? Team effort.
Yeah.
And there's that one person, that one team member who's just not pulling their weight.
Ugh, we've all been there. It's so frustrating. It slows everyone down.
It does. Now, you could confront them directly, call them out for slacking,
Yeah,
but that has its downsides.
big time. You can create a whole conflict, become the bad guy, even if you're totally in the right.
Exactly. So how would you apply keeping your hands clean here? Instead of that direct confrontation, maybe you subtly encourage other team members to address the issue.
Ah, so you're kind of orchestrating things behind the scenes.
A little bit. Or, during a meeting, you can steer the conversation subtly.
To highlight the importance of, everyone contributing equally.
You got it. You're nudging things in the right direction, but without getting your hands dirty.
Clever.
You're influencing the situation without being the source of the conflict. Problem solved, relationships stay good.
That's amazing. I'm already rethinking how I handle those tricky situations at work. Any other examples? Real life stuff.
Tons. Think about family dynamics. Tricky, right?
The worst.
Say you've got a sibling who's always borrowing money but never pays it back. What do you do?
Ooh, that's a tough one. It's so awkward to talk about money, especially with family.
It can totally strain relationships, but directly confronting them could create a huge rift. So what's the clean hands approach here?
I'm all ears.
You could talk to other family members,
Yeah.
express your concerns, and subtly encourage them to address the issue.
So you're building a united front, but you're not the only one criticizing.
Exactly. If your sibling gets defensive, they can't just blame you. It's a group concern.
Wow, this is making me rethink everything. It's like a whole new set of tools for dealing with, well, life.
It is, and it all comes back to that core idea, the power of perception. Sometimes getting what you want isn't just about taking action. It's about doing it in a way that keeps your reputation intact.
And even strengthens your influence in the long run.
Exactly.
This is seriously mind-blowing. It feels like we've just scratched the surface of this whole concept.
Oh, we've got plenty more to uncover. This law is full of surprises.
Can't wait to dive deeper.
Let's do it. It's almost like we've been handed this secret decoder ring
Ooh, I like that.
for understanding all the power dynamics,
Yeah, it's like a cheat sheet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as we dig deeper into this whole keeping your hands clean idea, it becomes really clear, it's not just about avoiding blame, but it's also it's like you're cultivating this
Just what?
aura of innocence.
Yeah.
Almost like a strategic naivete.
Okay, so it's not enough to just not get caught doing something bad.
Right.
You have to actively project this image of being, above it all.
Exactly. It's tricky. It's a subtle game.
Definitely seems tricky.
Think about Louis XIV.
The Sun King.
Right. He wasn't just passively avoiding those controversial decisions. He was actively shaping his image,
Yeah.
as the majestic Sun King.
The source of light and prosperity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Untouched by all the messy politics happening below.
So he was playing a role.
Kind of, yeah. Like
Well-
an actor on a stage.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
And just like a really good actor, he was totally believable.
Mhm.
People actually saw him as this virtuous leader.
Even if behind the scenes he was pulling all the strings.
Right. It was all very calculated.
But wouldn't that be exhausting?
It probably was.
To constantly be on all the time, always projecting this perfect image.
Oh, for sure. It takes self-awareness and a lot of discipline, but the rewards, they're huge.
Okay, I'm starting to see the appeal.
Right. Because people are naturally drawn to those they trust.
Makes sense.
And if you can maintain that perception of trustworthiness.
Your influence just skyrockets.
Exactly. But the question is, how do you walk that line? How do you project this innocence without seeming fake?
Yeah, without seeming like you're trying too hard or manipulative.
Right. It's an art. You got to be subtle, almost like you're totally unaware of the power dynamics, even though you're, in the middle of them.
Give me an example.
Jeff Bezos. Think about how he presents himself.
Okay, yeah.
Enthusiastic innovator,
Right.
almost childlike in his wonder at technology.
Yeah, I've seen those interviews. When he talks about space travel, his eyes light up like a little kid. It's contagious.
Exactly. And that's part of his, I guess you could say, genius. By emphasizing that passion for innovation, he's shifting the focus
Away from
the less savory aspects of Amazon,
Yeah.
the labor practices, the criticisms. He seems driven by, pure creativity.
Not by just cold, hard profit.
Right. He's using his public image very deliberately to shape the whole narrative.
The narrative about him and D about Amazon.
Exactly. He's not denying that there are challenges or even controversies, but he's positioning himself, above them.
Focused on a much bigger picture.
Exactly.
This is wild.
It is.
It's like you're saying we can use these subtle Jedi mind tricks to influence how people see us.
A little bit.
Yeah.
But remember, the principles behind this keeping your hands clean law, they apply to all of us.
Not just the CEOs and the kings.
Right. Think about it. Have you ever been in a situation, any situation, where you needed to get something done?
Oh, yeah. All the time.
But directly confronting the issue head on would have just backfired, made things worse.
Like with my roommate, who never does the dishes.
Classic roommate problem.
If I nag her, it just turns into a fight.
Right. So how could you apply this law in that situation? Instead of the direct confrontation, maybe you could subtly incentivize her to do the dishes.
Like how?
Maybe a chore chart. Or you offer to cook dinner if she cleans up afterward.
So I'm like manipulating her.
Not manipulating, no. More like nudging. Gently nudging.
Okay, nudging.
It's about finding creative ways to reach your goal without, creating all this unnecessary conflict
Right.
or damaging the relationship. Because remember, keeping your hands clean.
It's about both.
Yes. Preserving your reputation and your relationships. It's a balancing act.
I was starting to see the difference. It's less about like being sneaky and more about like playing chess, thinking a few moves ahead,
You got it.
anticipating how things will play out.
Exactly. And sometimes the most effective move, the best move, is the one that seems the least forceful.
Ah, interesting.
It's about using your influence subtly so the other person feels like they're making their own choices, even if you're, kind of guiding them.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. This law, it applies to so much. Negotiating a raise, dealing with like difficult relatives.
It does. It's everywhere.
It's amazing.
And you can even apply it to, like, personal growth. Think about bad habits you want to break.
Okay, yeah.
Instead of, beating yourself up when you slip up.
Which I do all the time.
Could you reframe it as a learning experience? Focus on the progress you are making.
Instead of the setbacks.
Exactly. It's a way to, like, keep your hands clean from all that self-criticism.
And maintain that positive self-image.
You got it. Because when you focus on the positive,
You're more likely to stay motivated.
yes, and actually achieve those goals.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. Historical figures, CEOs, personal growth.
All right.
But let's get super practical for our listeners. Specific tactics.
Yeah.
Things people can do to keep their hands clean in their everyday life.
Okay, love it. One of the most effective strategies is delegation.
Delegation.
If there's something that could potentially backfire on you,
Damage your reputation.
exactly. Delegate it to someone else. Let them handle it.
But doesn't that seem like you're just passing the buck? Avoiding responsibility?
It's not about shirking responsibility, no.
Mhm.
It's more about, like, strategically allocating tasks.
Okay, yeah.
A good leader knows their strengths, their weaknesses,
Plays to them.
and delegates accordingly. Plus, delegating tasks, it empowers others.
Gives them ownership.
Exactly. It builds that sense of shared responsibility.
Makes sense. But how do you choose the right person to delegate to?
Ooh, that's crucial. You need someone competent, obviously.
Yeah.
Someone you trust. And ideally, someone who won't, resent taking on this task.
Yeah.
It's also super important to be really clear about what you expect from them.
And give them the support they need to succeed.
Exactly. Because if they do well, it reflects well on you as a leader.
Win-win.
Right. So we've got delegation, we've got shaping your public image, strategic scapegoating.
Powerful stuff.
It is. But we've got to talk about the ethical side of this too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. We can't just ignore that.
Right. Because while keeping your hands clean can be super valuable, super effective, you have to use it ethically, responsibly.
Okay, so how do we make sure we're not crossing that line?
The key thing to remember is this law is about protecting your reputation
Right.
while still acting with integrity.
Hmm.
It's not about being manipulative or deliberately causing harm.
Mm-hmm.
If you're using these tactics just to deceive people or to exploit them,
It'll backfire.
oh, absolutely. It'll backfire big time. People see through that stuff eventually. And your reputation, it'll be shot.
So it's like walking a tightrope.
It is.
You have to be really careful not to fall into that trap of using these strategies for the wrong reasons.
Exactly. It's all about balance.
Mm-hmm.
Finding that balance between, achieving your goals and staying true to your values.
If you're using keeping your hands clean just to like manipulate or hurt people, then you're not really keeping your hands clean at all.
You're doing the opposite.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
True power, lasting power, it comes from integrity. It comes from being authentic. Being strategic is important, yes,
Mhm.
but being ethical, being responsible, that's even more important.
Couldn't agree more. And even if you are successful in, keeping your hands clean, you have to be prepared for the unexpected. Sometimes things just go wrong,
Right.
no matter how carefully you've planned. And you have to deal with the fallout.
So it's not foolproof. You can't just follow these rules and be guaranteed a perfect outcome.
Exactly. Life is messy, life is unpredictable.
Mm-hmm.
But by understanding these principles, by applying them,
You can at least tilt the odds in your favor.
yes, and navigate all those complexities of power, of perception, with more grace, with more integrity.
This is Goal LD. You've given us a roadmap for navigating all these tricky situations
Wow.
where, power and perception are always clashing.
That's a constant dance.
It is, and I bet our listeners are already thinking about how they can use these ideas in their own lives.
I hope so, because it's about empowering people.
So we've been really digging into this keeping your hands clean idea from Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power,
Hmm.
and it's made me realize just how much perception matters, especially when we're talking about like power, influence, all of that.
It's like we're peeling back the layers of an onion here, right? The more we explore this law, the more we find.
Yeah, there's a lot of nuance to unpack.
And one of the most fascinating things is it's not just about avoiding those negative perceptions.
Right.
It's also about actively, cultivating the positive ones.
So it's not enough to just like not be bad. You got to actually project an image of being good.
That's the key. It's like you're building this aura of trustworthiness around yourself, a sort of halo effect.
You keep mentioning this halo effect. Can you break that down a bit more? How does it tie into all this keeping your hands clean stuff?
Sure. The halo effect, it's a psychological thing, It basically means if we see someone doing something good, we tend to assume they're good at other things too.
So our brains are kind of taking a shortcut.
Exactly. Like, oh, good person, must be good at everything.
Mm-hmm.
And in the context of this law, if someone is perceived as ethical, trustworthy, we're more likely to also see them as competent, intelligent, even likable.
It all just kind of like rubs off on them.
Right. And for leaders, this can be super advantageous. A leader who's seen as morally upright.
People are going to trust them more.
Exactly. They inspire loyalty, confidence in their followers, and even when things go wrong, they're more likely to get the benefit of the doubt.
Okay, so it's all connected. Keeping your hands clean, it's a way to like tap into this halo effect.
Yeah.
Make people see you in a more positive light.
Precisely. Cultivate that perception of goodness, and people are more likely to trust your judgment, follow your lead, all of that.
But how do you do that without seeming, I don't know, fake?
It's a good question.
Like if you're too calculated, too obvious about it, won't people see right through you?
You're right. It's a balancing act, for sure.
Mm.
The key is subtlety. Make it look effortless.
Yeah.
Like genuinely be interested in others, in their well-being, act with integrity, make decisions that benefit everyone, not just yourself.
So it's not about being a saint. It's about making choices that, line up with your values, choices that lead to good outcomes for everyone involved.
Exactly. It's strategic, yes, but it's also ethical. It's compassionate. Because true power, real power, it doesn't come from manipulating people or taking advantage of them. It comes from building trust, from genuine connection.
This has been so eye-opening. I'm already looking at leadership, power in a whole new way.
I'm glad to hear that.
So as we wrap things up, what are the big takeaways for our listeners? What do you want them to remember?
I'd say the most important thing is perception matters.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just act ethically. You have to be seen as acting ethically. And that takes self-awareness, taking a step back, thinking about how others see you.
It's like having that little PR team in your head, constantly managing your image. But like we said, it's not about being fake. It's about making sure your actions and your values are aligned and that your intentions are clear.
Exactly. And another key takeaway, be strategic.
Strategic, okay.
Don't be afraid to delegate, to use intermediaries. Even employ a little plausible deniability when the situation calls for it.
Can we just quickly remind everyone what plausible deniability means? Some of our listeners might be a little fuzzy on that one.
Oh, sure. Plausible deniability, it's basically like setting things up so that if something goes wrong, you can deny that you knew about it or that you were responsible for it.
Not lying exactly, but
Right. It's more like creating a buffer.
between you and the potential fallout.
Exactly. So, for example, you're a CEO and you've got to make some tough decisions, layoffs, let's say.
Oof, yeah.
You could delegate the task of actually delivering that news to like a lower level manager.
Right.
That way you can still express sympathy for the people losing their jobs, but you're not directly linked to the decision itself. It's about, managing those perceptions, minimizing the damage to your reputation.
Makes sense. But like we said before, use these tactics carefully.
Ethically.
Don't go overboard with the delegation or the plausible deniability, or you'll end up looking like you don't care. or like you're incompetent.
That's the danger zone for sure.
It's about finding that sweet spot, that balance,
Yes.
protecting yourself, but also staying involved enough to maintain that credibility, that trust. Because real power, it comes from authenticity,
Yeah.
from integrity.
Well said.
So, as we leave our listeners to ponder all this, what's the one piece of advice, the one thing you really want them to take away from this whole keeping your hands clean idea?
I'd say think about how you can apply these principles to your own life,
Hmm.
to the specific challenges you face, the opportunities you have. Are you safeguarding your reputation while still pursuing your goals? Are you building trust, influencing people in a positive way? Those are the questions I want people to ask themselves.
That's a great place to end things. It's not just about understanding these laws, it's about using them in a
Yeah.
way that's smart and ethical. And hey, listeners, remember, power is a game that's best played with clean hands, or at least with the appearance of clean hands.
Well said. Until next time, stay curious, stay strategic, and yeah, keep those hands sparkling.
And remember, knowledge is power, but perception is king. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.